All right, welcome back, everybody. We are up here on Little Round Top. This is Gettysburg 155 Live. You're with the American Battlefield Trust. I'm Gary Edelman. That's Chris White behind the camera. That's Connor Townsend behind that camera. We got Lieutenant Dan still looking for another battlefield promotion over there, also American Battlefield Trust. And I'm really happy to be joined by Tim Smith and Doug Dowds, both licensed battlefield guides and more. And we're up on Little Round Top. We're going to spend a short time amount up here. I'm going to ask you to go back to last year's Little Round Top video that we have to fill in any gaps that we don't have here. Again, on your desktop, go to Facebook, American Battlefield Trust Facebook page, go to videos, and you'll see a whole playlist worth. It's a little harder to find on your mobile device. But here we are up on Little Round Top, man, and we all, as guides, give summaries up here. Set us up, Tim.
Okay, so we're in the area of Little Round Top, and of course this is the end of the northern line of battle on July 2nd and 3rd, the line we generally refer to as the fish hook. So in a general sense, the northern line runs from Big and Little Round Top all the way to Cemetery Hill. And if you look up in that direction, you'll see a light blue water tower on top of Cemetery Hill. From there, the Union line curves around to Culp's Hill, which is behind the camera position on the other side of the trees. You can't see it from here. So the southern line of battle started on the other side of Culp's Hill, ran around through the town of Gettysburg out to the seminary. You can see a red barn with 3 white ventilators on it. And on top of that, in the edge of the woods, is the seminary building of the chapel of the seminary sticking up above the trees. The southern line of battle ran along that wooded ridge line as far as you can see. Straight across, there is a large metal tower, observation tower, built in 1895 by the War Department, and the line continued along that ridge past that beige house where we started our Hood's Charge tour from this morning. And then you continue on where the trees are broken up by the road. That's where the Texas Monument is located. And then a little farther down at the base of Seminary Ridge, under what is the ski slopes out there, you can see maybe the Alabama Monument. The northern line of battle is some 3.5 miles long. The southern line is 6 miles long. But the Southern Army have less men. Their line is farther spread out. And during the battle, the Southern Army is crossing an open field and charging up a hill. And you saw how rough some of the ground they covered was. Of course, on the second day of the battle, the Northern Army at the beginning of the fight is not exactly in the shape of the giant fishhook, because there's a general, Daniel Edgar Sickles, the commander of the 3rd Army Corps. And for whatever reason, and of course there's lots of stuff written about it, he is not satisfied with the position that he has been given. So he decided to move his troops forward. And he ended up lining his men up from the rocks of Devil's Den, across through the Rosewood Lot, the wheat field, the peach orchard, and down the Emmitsburg Road past those red barns. And when Sickles moved his 10,000 men forward against orders, he left this hill unoccupied. Of course, on the second day of the battle, thousands of Southern soldiers would attack the southern end of the northern line, and it would be heavy fighting out in front of us. But Little Round Top, at the outset of the fight, was unoccupied.
That sounds great, Tim. Good. Great setup, and let's talk about it, because we know there's actually a fight for Little Round Top. Who's going to fight on Little Round Top? Doug, let's talk about that.
Okay, so now we have all those troops in position. Let's talk about how this goes down. What we're going to realize is George Gordon Meade's going to ride out in the peach orchard and realize what Dan Sickles has done, and he's going to make 4 quick decisions. He's going to figure out all the pieces that need to go and support the 3rd Corps. Hancock's 2nd Corps, the 5th Corps is only reserve on the field, and parts of the artillery reserve. And one of the last decisions he makes is he's going to send his chief engineer, Brigadier General Gouverneur K. Warren, who's standing on that boulder. He's going to say, go up to that high ground and tell me what I've missed. Warren will arrive up here and stand just as he stands today with binoculars in hand and look out across these fields and find the Confederates are now advancing from that far tree line. And the problem for the Union Army at about 4 o'clock on the afternoon of July 2nd is that first domino of that Confederate wave attack is going to arrive here and never hit the Union line that's down on Devil's Den. So now it's a race. It's a race to get troops here. Who will get here first? The Confederates coming from that far tree line, or Union troops that will arrive? All kinds of aides for Warren will be down in that valley looking for Union troops. In fact, one of the couriers is going to run into a brigade that's sitting down there commanded by Colonel Strong Vincent. And he'll say, I'm looking for your division commander. He's like, yeah, he's in the wheat field. What's that message say? Yeah, I'm looking for General Barnes. I heard it. What's that message say? And finally, the courier is going to give him a message, and it says, we need a brigade up here. And Vincent will rush his brigade up here, and they're going to arrive with about 5 minutes to spare before that first domino of the Confederates comes across Big Round Top and strikes this position.
Yeah, and it's really cool. Here you have an army have armies, 160,000 soldiers here, and individual valor and courage, individual decisions, what Gouverneur Kemble Warren does, what we're going to learn about what Patty O'Rourke does, what Strong Vincent does, what Joshua Chamberlain does, what individual soldiers do can really help affect the outcome of this battle, an important battle. We don't even got to get into the what if of what would have happened if the Confederates won Gettysburg. I think it depends how they won Gettysburg. But let's get to the top up here and still visit some more. You're watching the American Battlefield Trust, Gettysburg 155 Live. Thanks for joining us here today. Sorry we can't interact with too many of your questions here. Connectivity down on this part of the field gets difficult. And now we're going up to the very crest of Little Round Top. And during the Battle of Gettysburg, there's going to be one battery up here. Not really advantageously placed. It can't really reach down into the Valley of Death or anywhere where the Confederates are actually attacking. And to be clear, the attacks on Little Round Top are not coming from the beautiful view from the west. They are coming mostly from the south over on that side. But to get guns up here is what the battery members remembered of Battery D, 5th U.S., Charles Hazlitt's battery. And these soldiers didn't say, man, I saw a lot of my friends die. Wow, I got to watch Pickett's charge. What they mostly wrote about was it was really hard to get these guns on top of Little Round Top. These barrels weigh 800, 900 pounds each. They had to be brought up here by manpower alone. Only one was able to get up here with a horse. And Hazlitt is over here, and he's with his friend General Weed. General Weed, in command of a brigade, was supposedly standing on this rock right behind me, and he is shot by a Confederate. I think it was probably a mini ball. We don't know where it came from. We never know where it came from, hardly, in the Civil War. And he falls upon the rock and says, I am cut in two. I want to see Hazlitt. And supposedly, Hazlitt bends over to hear Weed's dying words, and he is shot dead upon the body of his dying friend. Now, there's some people that question that story and the location as well, but I'll tell you this. The accounts point toward Weed falling on a rock near Hazlitt's rightmost piece, and from what I can tell, and I've done a lot of research on this, Hazlitt's rightmost piece was right behind the camera over there. So I don't know if this is the rock where they fell, but this makes sense to me. Not to mention that the first monuments on the battlefield are not big granite ones like this one, but rather they are rock carvings. Maybe the camera can go around one way or the other and see. And this rock carving has been here since October of 1864, or maybe into 1865, as Tim Smith likes to say. It says C.E. Hazlitt fell here commanding, C-O-M''G, Battery D, 5th U.S. Artillery in battle July 2nd, 1863. This thing has been here since right around the time of the Civil War. During the Civil War it was carved, and we don't know who carved it, but it seems to be in the right location. Now, this monument here used to sit where that monument is, or right past it. Then Pennsylvania appropriated more money. They built a larger monument. That's what $1,500 bought you back then. And then they put their smaller monument on this rock and dedicated it to the memory of General Weed, their brigade commander.
Awesome. So let's go down here and let's figure out when Colonel Strong Vincent rushes his brigade up here, and it's a unique brigade. It's not made up of all men from New York or Pennsylvania or Ohio. It's a mixed brigade. It's made up of men from Michigan, New York, Pennsylvania, and Maine. And what he's going to do is he's going to bring them down and put them in position from where the threat is coming from. This is the southern side of Little Round Top. And so we can start to make out some of the markers. The 16th Michigan, just off to our right front. The 44th New York, the largest regimental marker on the field, 44 feet high, and if you go in the middle of that castle monument, it's 12 feet by 12 feet, also for the 12th New York. So you can see where the right two regiments of Vincent's men go.
Good. So as we're coming up here, again, I think, I'm not sure if you mentioned or not, so Vincent was smart. He didn't put his men way up on the top where his men would form a convenient silhouette. He puts them down there, as Doug mentioned, on the military crest with a great field of fire, without forming the silhouette, with a way that artillery can fire over your head as you go. Now, we're going to pass by a plaque and a couple of monuments. We'll come back to this afterward, but we're really going to go over to the side of the hill where everything happened. See, the Texans and Alabamians who attacked here, they reached this part of the hill first. It's closer to them. The Alabamians who ended up fighting in the woods against the 83rd Pennsylvania and 20th Maine, they had to go all the way to the top of Big Round Top, down the other side, and then make this attack 2, 3, 4, 5 times, depending on what you call an attack. So let's get over here. I don't know if Tim Smith wants to do the attacking on this side of the hill. If he demurs, I'll do it. So let's see if Tim does his famous Tim run and comes up to the front here. Well, it's kind of a fast walk. Okay. Go ahead, Tim.
Okay. So, Little Round Top's kind of interesting that in the fact that part of Little Round Top is wooded and part of it is open. And Vincent's brigade that formed the Union line of battle occupied the wooded area of Little Round Top and the open area here in front of us. And if you draw yourself an imaginary line from Little Round Top to Devil's Den up the Seminary Ridge, you kind of get an idea of the attack. north of that line, north of the area of Devil's Den, that's where the Texans and the Georgians fought against General Sickles' advanced position. But south of this imaginary line, this is where the Texans and Alabamians swung up and over Big Round Top and hit the area of the hill in front of us. Vincent's brigade arrived a few minutes before the attack. Very quickly, there were more Southern soldiers than Northerners in the initial attack. The Texans worked their way around on the low shelf of Little Round Top and actually outflanked part of the 16th Michigan Regiment, and the Michigan soldiers started to fall back. At that moment, Colonel Strong Vincent jumped up on a rock behind us somewhere, supposedly, and he was mortally wounded. And at this point, it looked like the Southern Army might be successful. But I think, Dan, we're going to talk a little bit. Is this where you want to do?
Well, actually, let's continue the Vincent story, then we'll move over to the 140th. So right now, this is a perilous position, right? Vincent's on his rock. The 16th Michigan is falling back. Oh, my God. Let's talk about Vincent for a second real quick, if we may, because, again, Vincent's got a death marker about 70 yards away from here. It's just down the hill. It's one of the early monuments on the battlefield. In fact, one of the first two outside the National Cemetery. But 13 or 14 years before that, somebody carved this on the rock. Obviously the same person. Colonel Strong Vincent fell here commanding. C-O-M''G. 2nd Brigade or 3rd Brigade. 2nd Brigade? I thought it was 3rd, 1st Division, 5th Corps. July 2nd.
Brigade.
Okay, it is 3rd Brigade. It's hard to tell from here.
Sometimes when people put ink in the inscription, they don't
mess it
do
up.
It correctly.
Okay.
Of course, they did it correctly with the backwards S.
Pretty cool. So in this case, I'll say that, we don't know who carved this thing, but in this particular case, they seem to have gotten it right again. By all accounts, Vincent was rallying the men of the 16th Michigan, whose monument you can see right over there. This one seems to be correct. It seems like the other one, erected by the members of the 83rd Pennsylvania, wanted to place Vincent's Fall inside their lines, but the documents show that they were up this way as well. So again, you can learn from the battlefield by learning about the battlefield, which is really cool. Now, so as we said, it's a perilous moment. Vincent falls down, mortally wounded. The 16th Michigan, with their flag, part of which has retreated up to the hill. It's a horrible moment. Dan?
We're headed over now to the monument for the 140th New York Infantry. It's one of the more popular monuments here on Little Round Top. Had I shaved this morning, I'd probably look like the gentleman who's on it, Patrick H. O'Rourke. O'Rourke is an Irish immigrant. He'll finish first in his class at West Point in June of 1861. He's an engineer in the early stages of the war, but here he's going to command the 140th New York Infantry. And the 140th New York is on its way to Little Round Top, and they get up to the crest of the hill where we're standing at a fortuitous moment. The 16th Michigan, the right end of Vincent's line, is giving way. O'Rourke's going to lead his men up over the top of the hill, down the crest, and as he's moving down through these rocks, he's going to be struck down. He's going to fall amidst the rocks over to the camera's left. But the 140th is going to push ahead. They're going to engage the 1st Texas and push the 1st Texas back and stabilize the line. Now you may notice the patina on O'Rourke's nose. For good luck, visitors to Little Round Top rub his nose.
Okay, rapid fire quiz right here, impromptu. Okay, he's first in his class in West Point. Who's last in that same class?
George Armstrong Custer.
Oh, wow, God. Okay, we gave him his cavalry moment there. According to the monument, how many people are in this regiment?
526.
526, good. Where are these guys from?
Rochester, New York, Monroe County Regiment.
And had these guys loaded their guns before they came crashing over the hill?
No.
No, we really don't know. I think no, but I'm not really sure.
Well, at least the leading company did not.
Yeah, good. Very cool. Let's continue.
Wait, before we leave here, so the other cool thing, because we talked about the monument, so one of the cool things, if you look at the top of this, it says valor, fraternity, patriotism, and duty. And those are all the values for which men wore the uniform. But here's the rub, gang. 526 men from the state of New York don't come charging down this hill into a bunch of screaming Texans for those values. They charge down this hill because a guy like Patty O'Rourke leads them.
All
well,
right,
let me
good.
mention, since you talked about it.
I keep trying to go.
Custer was last in this class, but Custer had hopped over his entire class in rank in 2 years, and Custer was a general at this battle. How did that happen?
Well, you have, they had a need for brigade commanders and more, and you're going to have cavalry commanders boosted in June of 1863, skipping from captain through major, through lieutenant colonel, through colonel, all the way to brigadier general. You've got, one of them is Custer. Who else do we got?
Wesley Merritt and Elon Farnsworth.
But I was going to say, Gary, I was going to try to make it simpler. Custer's nose was a different color.
Ooh, go Tim Smith. Let's go. Okay, you're watching the American Battlefield Trust Gettysburg 155 Live. You're out here with the American Battlefield Trust and other guest historians. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you share this with your friends on Facebook. We're going to go down a little bit of precipitous path to get to where we're going, out into the woods where the 83rd Pennsylvania and the 20th Maine is going to fight. That's where we're going to end this particular video. So we're going to walk at a decent clip, excuse me, sorry cameraman, as we go. Let's focus for a sec. So we're actually now on the old road bed. Before the cars came around, there were all sorts of small twisting roads all over the battlefield, many of which are gone. And this road we're going to walk on up here is also part of a road that is called Sykes Avenue, but now it's perfectly straight. It used to zigzag up to the top of the hill and down. I wonder if Tim's able to get to the front of the crowd here so he can talk about battlefield roads. Man, do we love talking about roads, and since we're walking on one, it seems like a good time to do it.
Well, it's interesting that at the time of the Civil War, obviously there were no roads that led to the top of Little Round Top. There were just trails, probably trails constructed by Jacob Weichert, the farmer who owned the backside of Little Round Top. And then, of course, the battle was fought. And during the battle, the Army, since there's a large amount of people here, created their own trails to get to these areas. And then the GBMA started to lay out various roads and trails on the battlefield to get to the areas that they had purchased, and they constructed a road system. And then in the 1890s, the War Department took control of the battlefield, and they placed a road system on our battlefield. And then in the 1930s, when the Park Service took control of the battlefield, the National Park Service built roads. So we have roads on top of roads on top of roads on top of roads on top of trails. And it's interesting, as you tour the battlefield, you can see the different roads from the different eras of battlefield tourism that are on top of each other. And this area we're walking on is now a trail, but this used to be a road. And what was the name of this road, Gary?
Well, this is Sykes for now, and then it was Chamberlain Avenue. I like the way Tim, too. You can't see here is that there's woods right behind us, the edge of a trail, and Tim keeps walking closer and closer to the camera, forcing the camera people off into the poison ivy. So thanks, Tim. Now, Doug, maybe you could come on up here as we walk out to the 20th Maine's position. Could you set up the 83rd and the 20th out here? Are they posted first, last? What's going on?
Absolutely. So this makes sense. We leave that front that we talked about that was so open because the front of the hill gets cleared for lumber several seasons before this battle's fought. The backside is never cleared. So when we come out here, the vegetation looks very much the same. We talked about the roads aren't going to be here, and we also see some stone walls up here. Now, they're not here. All of these are built on the evening of July 2nd with the expectation that they would fight here on the morning of July 3rd. So those aren't here either. Remember, these Union troops arrive here with 5 minutes to spare. And of course, as they bring them out, we now have the next part of the connection. We are now at the very left end of the Union line. The 83rd Pennsylvania off to our right, and we have now the 20th Maine set up right here. And just like we could talk about on the front side of the hill, they're going to be down off the top of the crest on the military crest. And that's where the preliminary line of Chamberlain's going to be.
Good, cool. So actually there are two walls here. The far one is actually that built by some of the members of the 5th Corps. I think it's Tilton's brigade that actually builds those on the night of the 2nd, because the 20th Maine and the 83rd Pennsylvania are going to move on, and they are at Big Round Top at this point in the battle when they're building those walls after the battle. A lot of good it did them then. Thank you. Wow, that was an interesting noise telling me to look at the camera. I really liked it.
I do for my dog.
I thought it a little bit inappropriate, but if it was a dog thing, then I'm cool with it. So this wall was built just after the battle. That one appeared sometime in the 1880s or something like that afterwards. So without getting into too much detail, and hop in if you guys want to do this. So what you have here is the 20th Maine right here. Their left rests upon where the monument is right now, okay? You all know the story. Their left of the Union Army happens to meet almost perfectly with the right of the Confederate Army. That's the 15th Alabama in front of us, the 47th Alabama off over that way, and they're going to almost meet perfectly. It is an intense fight. They charge once, they charge twice, falling back with deadly casualties each time. There are about equal numbers here, and the Confederates almost capture Little Round Top on that side, and they're going to almost capture it on this side. Ultimately, the Confederates, William C. Oates, are going to stretch their line out and come from that direction over there. Famously, the 20th Maine will bend back their position here, so they're refusing the line. It's a thinner line, but now they have something to meet the Confederate onslaught. It goes back and forth that way when, famously, from the Gettysburg movie, what's the maneuver called? How are they going to swing out?
Like a gate.
They're going to swing. No, hold on.
Swing like a door.
Swing like a door. They're going to swing like a door. And Major Spear, of course, in the movie says, "What do you mean, charge?" And they do. They charge into the Confederates, who feel like they're surrounded because there's some sharpshooters and skirmishers behind them as well. They ran like a herd of wild cattle. Where did they have to go? These exhausted Alabamians, the ones who had marched the farthest to get here, the ones who had stayed up all night, marched over and down a mountain, ones without any water, have to go back up Big Round Top. And from what I can tell, from what I've read, you're not thinking about rotting away in a northern prison at this point. You're thinking, I need to rest right now, okay? Because these are physiological beings just like us. And if you're tired, hungry, and thirsty, you're thinking about food, water, and sleep, not independence and slavery and the minutiae of battle. They are people just like us, guys.
So for Chamberlain, as he swings down into this valley to the cheers of the 83rd Pennsylvania, of course, this secures the very left of the Union Army. And of course, for this, he will eventually be awarded the Medal of Honor. This is going to help secure Little Round Top from our walk to the front to this point. And of course, with this, now Warren will be considered the savior of Little Round Top. Little Round Top is now a Union Island. But for all the other things taken out on this battlefield, the collapse of Devil's Den, the wheat field, where we'll get to later, the crushing of the peach orchard, all those Union troops are retreating across this field, and this will still anchor the Union line, but there's a massive gap now between Little Round Top and where the rest of the Union line sits on Cemetery Ridge.
That's really cool. So you all, thanks so much for joining us on these little jaunts of ours. I know some of you wish that they would be different, that maybe we would cover something else in more detail, that the sun would be in a different position, maybe that I would jump around a little bit less. Man, one of you is really worked up about that, more worked about how much I get worked up than I am worked up in the first place. But this is free. We're out here on some of the hottest days of the year. We're doing the best we can for you. So really sit back, enjoy, share this with your friends. Don't watch it if you don't like it. We hope you do, but you know, we can't please them all. So come on out, join us for the rest of the day. And more than anything else, thank you to the members and supporters of the Civil War Trust, the American Battlefield Trust, the Rev War Trust, for all that you do in supporting battlefield preservation and education.